not leave this open. You wiped it too.
Abby, I'm hurt. You think I did this?
I heard that, Tinozo. Another wise-ass comment like that, I'll smack you so hard your grandchildren will feel it.
Pauley Perrette of NCIS has come forward saying she's terrified of co-star Mark Harmon, suggesting he's the reason she left the show.
Everyone thought they knew why Pauley Perrette retired from acting. The official story was simple. She wanted a quieter life.
It's sad to imagine a world without Abby in it. It really makes me sad.
Did you go through that whole grieving process?
I'm still grieving. It feels different every day.
But the leaked documents tell a different story. There were assault allegations, safety violations, and a co-star she was so afraid of that she needed therapy just to cope.
This morning, one of the biggest stars on CBS is speaking out, saying she is terrified of her former co-star Mark Harmon, the lead of one of the biggest shows on the network.
Now at 56, Pauley is finally ready to tell the truth about what really happened in those final years on set. March 27, 1969. New Orleans welcomed another baby into the world, but Pauley Perrette wasn't destined to call any place home for long. Her father worked the railroad, and that meant one thing: constant movement. By the time she reached her teenage years, she had lived in 14 different states. Each move taught her something new about survival.
When I look at my life, and my life has been crazy. I have had a crazy life. I feel in every day of my life, especially in my faith journey, it makes more and more and more sense to me that God's hand had been right.
The Deep South shaped her early years, even though Louisiana was just her starting point. At 15, she made a decision that shocked everyone who knew her. She walked into a tattoo parlor and emerged with permanent ink on her skin. In the conservative South of the 1980s, this wasn't just rebellion, it was revolution. Her parents were mortified. Her church community whispered behind closed doors. But for Pauley, that first tattoo represented something crucial. The moment she stopped letting other people control her body and her choices. The tattoos multiplied over the years. Each one told a story. Each one represented another step away from the suffocating expectations of Southern propriety. By adulthood, she carried nearly 20 different pieces of art on her skin. They weren't random decorations or attention-seeking gestures. They were declarations of independence, visible reminders that she would never again pretend to be someone else's idea of perfect. When graduation arrived, Pauley already knew exactly what she wanted to study. Criminal justice called to her with the same intensity that had driven her childhood fascination with crime stories. But she didn't stop with one degree. She pursued sociology, psychology, and criminology with equal passion. Each field of study added another layer to her understanding of human behavior. New York City became her next destination, where she enrolled at John Jay College of Criminal Justice to pursue her master's degree. This educational journey was preparing her for challenges she couldn't yet imagine, building a foundation of knowledge and resilience that would prove essential when her own life took unexpected turns toward fame, danger, and ultimately, the kind of workplace trauma that would force her to choose between career success and personal safety. The streets of Atlanta in the 1980s were supposed to be safe for a young woman pursuing her education, but violence has never respected expectations or academic schedules. Pauley's encounter with criminal brutality came without warning or mercy, a violent mugging that stripped away any illusion that studying crime from textbooks could prepare someone for experiencing it firsthand. The attack details remain private, locked away in her memory where trauma lives and breathes, but its impact radiated through every decision she made afterward. Most people would have retreated to familiar comforts after such an experience, perhaps moving back to the safety of small-town life where dangers were known and manageable. Pauley chose the opposite path entirely. Instead of running from the trauma, she ran toward it. The attack crystallized everything she had been studying in abstract terms. Suddenly, victimology wasn't just an academic subject, it was personal experience. Criminal psychology wasn't theoretical, it was survival knowledge. The fear and helplessness she felt in that moment became rocket fuel for her mission to understand and combat violent crime. She began speaking out for victims immediately, not from a platform of fame or influence, but from the ground level where real work gets done. She volunteered at shelters, attended court proceedings to support strangers facing their attackers, and used her growing knowledge of criminal justice to help navigate systems that often failed the people who needed them most.
Equality to me is much more than a goal to achieve. Equality to me is the very foundation that this great nation is built on.
New York tested her in different ways. Graduate school was intellectually demanding, but surviving in the city required street smarts and hustle. She bartended in underground clubs, her mohawk and combat boots fitting perfectly into the alternative scene that thrived in the city's hidden corners. The job wasn't glamorous, but it provided something invaluable, a front row seat to human behavior in its most unguarded moments. People revealed their true selves after a few drinks. She watched relationships form and explode. She observed power dynamics, sexual politics, and social hierarchies play out across sticky bar tops and crowded dance floors. Every shift was like a field study in psychology and sociology. She was getting paid to do research, even if nobody realized it at the time. The roller skating job came next, distributing flyers on wheels through Manhattan's chaotic streets. Most people would have found it degrading or dangerous, but Pauley saw opportunity. She was being paid to observe the city from street level, to interact with hundreds of different people every day, to navigate traffic and crowds and human unpredictability. Cooking on dinner cruise boats required different skills entirely. Working in tight quarters with limited resources, serving demanding customers while the kitchen rocked with the waves, it was high-pressure teamwork at its most intense. She learned to stay calm under stress, to communicate clearly in chaotic situations, to maintain quality standards even when everything around her was literally unstable. None of these jobs were part of her official education, but they provided something no classroom could offer. She was studying human behavior not from textbooks, but from life itself. Every difficult customer, every dangerous situation, every moment when she had to think fast and act decisively was preparing her for challenges she couldn't yet imagine. By the time she finished her studies, Pauley had assembled a toolkit that few people possessed. She understood crime from the victim's perspective, human psychology from ground-level observation, and survival from personal necessity. In the 1990s, Pauley moved to LA with exactly $71 in her pocket and no plan beyond survival. The first months were brutal. She crashed on friends' floors, took whatever work she could find, and discovered that her criminology degree meant nothing in a city that ran on connections and appearance. Acting wasn't a childhood dream she was chasing. It was a practical decision born from desperation. The criminology career she had trained for didn't pay enough to survive in Los Angeles. Entertainment industry jobs, even small ones, offered better money and more flexibility than traditional careers. Her first break came not through agents or auditions, but through pure accident. Sitting in a coffee shop, she overheard someone discussing casting for The Drew Carey Show. Most people would have ignored the conversation or been too intimidated to approach strangers about professional opportunities. Pauley walked over and inserted herself into the discussion. That single moment of bold initiative led to landing a role as an extra named Darcy. 4 episodes over 2 years doesn't sound impressive, but for someone with no industry connections or formal training, it was everything. She was inside the system now, watching how television gets made, learning the rhythms of production, understanding the complex hierarchy that determines who gets opportunities and who gets ignored. Those early television appearances, Frasier, One, weren't glamorous, but they were education. She watched established actors work, studied how they prepared for scenes, observed how they navigated the political dynamics between cast and crew. The almost famous opportunity gave her the chance to work with actors like Philip Seymour Hoffman and director Cameron Crowe, proving she belonged in professional productions.
It's an honor to have the world's greatest rock critic and editor of Cream magazine back home in San Diego.
The casting call for NCIS came at a time when Pauley needed it most. She walked into that audition room in 2003 wearing baggy Levi's, sneakers, and a plain white t-shirt, the complete opposite of the gothic forensic scientist the role would eventually become. Her natural blonde hair and casual energy couldn't have been further from Abby Sciuto's aesthetic, but something about her presence immediately caught attention. Don Belisario reportedly said, "That's her," before she even read a single line. What he saw wasn't someone who looked like Abby, it was someone who embodied the character's essential energy. The rapid-fire speech patterns, the caffeinated enthusiasm, the genuine warmth that made everyone around her feel included. These weren't acting choices. They were simply who Pauley was when she felt comfortable and excited. The transformation into Abby happened gradually. The gothic look, the distinctive wardrobe, the laboratory setting, these were creative additions that enhanced her natural energy rather than masking it. When she put on the black clothes and pigtails for the first time, she wasn't becoming someone else. She was amplifying aspects of herself that had always existed but hadn't found the right outlet. That first episode established something crucial about Abby's role in the NCIS team. She wasn't just a lab technician who delivered scientific information. She was the heart of the operation, the person who brought warmth and humanity to investigations involving death and violence. Her laboratory became a sanctuary within the darker world of criminal justice.
I heard that, Denozo. Another wise-ass comment like that, I'll smack you so hard your grandchildren will feel it.
The chemistry with the rest of the cast developed naturally because Pauley approached every relationship with genuine affection and interest. She wasn't trying to steal scenes or compete for attention. Instead, she focused on supporting her colleagues and making everyone around her feel valued. This collaborative spirit showed up on screen as authentic family dynamics between characters who genuinely cared about each other. Fans responded immediately to Abby's unique combination of technical expertise and emotional intelligence. Here was a character who could explain complex forensic procedures while also providing comfort to grieving families. She represented the best aspects of both scientific objectivity and human compassion. Viewers didn't just respect her knowledge, they loved her as a person. The writers noticed the audience response and began expanding Abby's role beyond simple laboratory scenes. She became involved in fieldwork, personal storylines, and the emotional core of major episodes. What started as a supporting character evolved into one of the show's central figures because Pauley brought depth and authenticity that couldn't be scripted.
I'm not a goth. I'm a scientist. And a great.
Her background in criminology proved invaluable as the character developed. She didn't just memorize technical dialogue, she understood the science behind it. Her years of studying victim psychology informed how Abby interacted with families affected by crime. Her own experience with trauma shaped how she portrayed someone who dealt with violence professionally while maintaining hope and humanity. The success happened gradually, then suddenly. What began as a single-season commitment became year after year of steady work, growing popularity, and increasing responsibility within the show's universe. Pauley found herself in the rare position of playing a character who perfectly matched her skills, interests, and values, while also providing financial security she had never experienced before. But with success came pressure. Networks, producers, and fans all had expectations about who Abby should be and how Pauley should embody that character. Behind the scenes of NCIS, Pauley's commitment to authenticity went far deeper than memorizing dialogue about DNA analysis and ballistics. She worked directly with real forensic experts, studying actual laboratory procedures, learning how crime scene investigators approached evidence, and understanding how they maintain professional objectivity while dealing with traumatic cases involving real victims and real families. This dedication showed in every scene where Abby explained fingerprint analysis or ballistics evidence. Pauley delivered the information with natural confidence because she actually understood the concepts she was discussing. Viewers trusted her expertise because it was grounded in genuine knowledge, rather than just scripted explanations that sounded scientific but lacked substance. The Guinness World Record she received in 2011 recognized something unprecedented in television history. The most popular TV crime drama actress designation wasn't based solely on ratings or industry recognition. It came from Q scores that measured how much viewers liked her as a person, not just as a character performing scripted actions. By this point, NCIS was averaging over 18 million viewers per episode, making it one of the most successful shows on television. Abby's laboratory had become as iconic as the show's opening theme music, representing something unique in crime drama. A character who could deal with death and violence professionally while maintaining genuine optimism and humanity. The success created incredible opportunities, but also mounting pressures from networks wanting to capitalize on Abby's popularity through spin-offs, merchandise deals, and expanded storylines that sometimes conflicted with Pauley's vision for the character and her own values as a performer committed to authentic storytelling rather than commercial exploitation. The morning of October 2016 started like countless others on the NCIS set, with cast and crew settling into the familiar rhythms of production that had made the show one of television's most successful franchises. Mark Harmon arrived with his rescue pit bull Dave, just as he had done for years without incident. The dog a familiar and generally welcome presence around the sound stages. But that particular day, something went catastrophically wrong in a way that would forever change the dynamics between two of the show's most important stars.
You killed him. In cold blood. I mean, I know what he did.
The attack happened fast and without warning. Dave suddenly lunged at a crew member, biting them severely enough to require 15 stitches. The wound was deep, the trauma immediate, and the implications staggering. Production shut down for 2 hours while the injured person received medical attention, and everyone processed what had just occurred. This wasn't a minor scratch or playful nip. The attack was serious enough to leave lasting physical scars and emotional damage. The crew member who was bitten faced weeks of recovery, medical bills, and the psychological aftermath of being attacked by an animal they had trusted. The incident shattered the sense of safety that had existed on set for years. Mark Harmon's attorney later acknowledged that his client had been warned about bringing the dog back to set after the attack. The legal advice was clear. Continuing to bring Dave to work created liability risks that could result in lawsuits, insurance problems, and further incidents. But despite these warnings, Dave returned to the set. For Pauley, this decision was unacceptable. She had been walking dogs on Sunset Boulevard when she first arrived in Hollywood. Her connection with Cece and other rescue animals was central to her identity. She understood dog behavior, respected the power these animals possessed, and knew that ignoring warning signs could lead to tragedy. She demanded that CBS permanently ban Dave from the set. This wasn't a casual request or friendly suggestion. It was a firm ultimatum backed by genuine fear for everyone's safety. When the network allowed Dave to return, Pauley's response was immediate and dramatic. She had a clause inserted into her season 15 contract that prohibited her from appearing in any scenes with Mark Harmon. From that moment forward, they would never share the same soundstage, the same filming day, or the same storylines. For fans watching at home, this created an inexplicable mystery. Gibbs and Abby had been central to the show's emotional core since the beginning. Behind the scenes, the logistics became nightmarish. Production schedules had to be completely restructured to accommodate two lead actors who couldn't be in the same location. Separate crews were required for their respective scenes. Costs multiplied as simple episodes became complex editing challenges. The editors faced an impossible task, creating the illusion of connection between characters who were never actually in the same room together. They used reaction shots, carefully timed dialogue, and creative camera angles to suggest interactions that had never occurred. Even phone conversations required separate recording sessions. Pauley's final episode drew 15 million viewers, many of whom were hoping for a proper goodbye between Gibbs and Abby. Instead, they watched a carefully constructed farewell that kept the characters in different buildings entirely. The emotional reunion fans expected was replaced by technical editing that maintained the illusion of their relationship while respecting the contractual reality.
The only thing that I do know is that I didn't find this out by accident.
And then, on June 2019, at 6 a.m., Pauley Perrette's X account exploded across the internet with a message that no one expected. Her words were direct, unfiltered, and devastating. She was terrified of Mark Harmon and had nightmares about him attacking her. She would never return to NCIS under any circumstances. The entertainment industry websites crashed as millions of fans tried to process what they were reading. This wasn't coming from anonymous sources or tabloid speculation. These were Pauley's own words posted on her verified social media account, impossible to dismiss or explain away. The image of Mark Harmon as America's television father figure crumbled instantly. For 15 years, he had been portrayed as the steady, reliable leader of the NCIS team. His character Gibbs was known for protecting his agents, like family. The idea that his real-life presence could terrorize a colleague contradicted everything fans thought they knew about him. Harmon's response was complete silence. No statements from representatives, no damage control interviews, no attempts to explain or defend his position. This silence only amplified Pauley's accusations in the minds of many fans who wondered why an innocent person wouldn't defend themselves against such serious allegations. What the public didn't know was that Pauley had already filed 3 separate safety complaints with CBS Human Resources. These weren't sudden emotional outbursts or publicity stunts. They were documented concerns raised through proper corporate channels over an extended period of time. CBS later confirmed that she had raised safety issues more than a year before leaving the show. The network had been aware of problems between their 2 lead actors and had chosen to manage the situation through contract modifications, rather than addressing the underlying safety concerns that Pauley kept reporting. In 2018, she had posted about suffering multiple faults, being forced into silence, and blaming a powerful machine for spreading lies about her departure. These posts were largely ignored at the time, dismissed as the vague complaints of a disgruntled former employee. The June 2019 tweets made it clear she had been trying to tell this story for over a year. She described feeling unsafe going to work and needing therapy to cope with the trauma. This wasn't about creative differences or salary disputes. This was about fundamental workplace safety and psychological well-being. Her decision to leave NCIS wasn't about wanting a quieter life. It was about escaping a situation that had become unbearable. The 3 separate HR complaints suggested she had tried repeatedly to resolve these issues through internal channels. Each report represented another attempt to get CBS to take her safety concerns seriously. The fact that problems persisted despite multiple official complaints indicated that the network had prioritized other considerations over employee protection. Her public statements also mentioned hiring a private investigator to document safety violations on the set. This wasn't emotional venting. This was evidence gathering. She was building a case based on documented incidents and professional investigation rather than personal grievances. The private investigator's findings became the foundation for her settlement negotiations with CBS. She had gathered enough evidence to support her claims and create serious legal and public relations problems for the network if the case went to trial. The settlement amount, reported to be between $5 and $9 million, suggested that CBS took her evidence seriously enough to pay substantial money to make the situation disappear. Networks don't write checks that large for frivolous complaints or personality conflicts.
Javier and I are broken. We have to move in with you.
What?
Broke premiered on April 2nd, 2020, with over 7 million viewers tuning in to see Pauley's return to television. After 2 years away from the spotlight, fans were eager to welcome back one of their favorite performers. The sitcom format was completely different from NCIS, giving her the chance to showcase comedy skills that had been glimpsed but never fully explored. The show followed a single mother whose wealthy sister loses everything and moves in with her family. Pauley played Jackie, the responsible sibling dealing with financial struggles, while her formerly rich sister adapted to middle-class reality. The premise offered opportunities for both humor and heart, exploring themes of family loyalty, economic inequality, and personal growth. Initial reviews were cautiously optimistic. Critics appreciated seeing Pauley in a lighter role after 15 years of crime drama. The supporting cast showed promise, and the writing had moments of genuine insight into contemporary American financial anxiety. CBS promoted the show heavily, clearly hoping to capitalize on Pauley's established fan base. But success proved elusive almost immediately. By the end of the first month, viewership had dropped significantly. The audience that had followed Pauley from NCIS wasn't connecting with this new character or format. The chemistry that had made Abby Sciuto beloved wasn't translating to Jackie Quinn. The ratings decline continued throughout the 13-episode run. By the season finale, only 3.6 million people were still watching, nearly half the premiere audience. In the crucial 18 to 49 demographic that advertisers care about most, the show had fallen to a 0.4 rating, well below the threshold needed for renewal. Critics became increasingly harsh as the season progressed. Words like boring and directionless appeared in reviews. The show was criticized for wasting Pauley's talents on generic storylines and predictable humor. What had seemed like a promising comeback was quickly becoming a professional disappointment. The cancellation came quietly, without fanfare or extensive explanation. CBS simply announced that Broke would not return for a second season. After being one of the most recognizable faces on network television for 15 years, Pauley's comeback had lasted exactly 13 episodes. The failure wasn't entirely her fault. The show's writing and concept were problematic from the beginning. The supporting cast, while competent, lacked the chemistry and individual charisma that had made the NCIS ensemble so successful. The timing was also unfortunate. The show launched just as the pandemic was disrupting normal television viewing patterns. But the cancellation sent a clear message throughout the industry. Pauley Perrette was no longer the reliable ratings draw she had been during her NCIS years. Her departure from that show, the controversy surrounding it, and the public statements she had made about Mark Harmon had apparently damaged her marketability in ways that couldn't be overcome by nostalgia alone. Failed comeback attempts often signal the end of major television careers. Actors who can't successfully transition from iconic roles to new projects typically find themselves relegated to smaller parts, guest appearances, and eventually complete industry exile. For someone who had spent over 2 decades building her career, watching Broke fail represented more than professional disappointment. It was the realization that speaking truth about workplace abuse had come with costs that extended far beyond the original situation. The courage to expose problems at CBS had effectively ended her ability to work in network television. September 2nd, 2021. Pauley woke up knowing immediately that something was catastrophically wrong. The entire right side of her body felt completely numb, not just weak or tingly, but utterly disconnected from her consciousness. When she touched her own cheek, it felt like touching a stranger's skin. The weight of her laptop resting on her legs registered visually, but not physically. Panic set in as she realized she was experiencing every symptom she had read about in medical textbooks during her criminology studies. This wasn't fatigue or stress. This was her brain being damaged in real time. At 53, she was having a massive ischemic stroke, and every minute of delay could mean permanent disability or death. The emergency room confirmed her worst fears. Medical staff surrounded her with the kind of urgent activity that occurs when someone's life hangs in the balance. The next 36 hours became a blur of medical procedures, worried faces, and the terrifying silence of losing her voice entirely. When speech finally returned, her first words revealed the personality that had carried her through decades of challenges. Instead of expressing fear or gratitude, she managed to say with characteristic sarcasm, "Dude, seriously?" Even facing mortality, she couldn't resist finding humor in the absurdity of her situation. Her doctor later admitted he hadn't expected her to survive past 5 p.m. that first day. The stroke had been severe enough to kill most patients, but Pauley's lifelong pattern of refusing to surrender served her well even when unconscious. Her brain began the slow, difficult process of rebuilding neural pathways that had been destroyed by the lack of oxygen. Recovery meant months of intensive therapy for both speech and motor functions. Simple tasks that she had performed automatically for decades, walking, talking, writing, now required conscious effort and constant practice. The woman who had once memorized complex scientific dialogue now struggled to find basic words. But she wasn't facing this challenge alone. Rosie, her rescue dog, had been the one to save her life. As the stroke was occurring, Rosie refused to stop pawing at her, waking her up repeatedly when her instinct was to slip into unconsciousness. That persistent intervention bought the crucial minutes needed for medical help to arrive. The irony wasn't lost on Pauley. The animals she had spent her career rescuing were now rescuing her. Rosie's actions demonstrated the kind of loyalty and intuition that no amount of money could purchase. The dog she had saved from abandonment became the reason she survived to see another day. Physical recovery was only part of the challenge. The stroke had occurred during one of the most isolated periods in modern history. The COVID-19 pandemic meant that rehabilitation took place under additional restrictions and safety protocols. Family visits were limited, support systems were disrupted, and the normal social connections that aid recovery were largely unavailable. But the stroke also brought unexpected clarity. Facing mortality at 53 forced Pauley to examine what truly mattered in her life. The fame, the money, the industry recognition, none of it had been present in that emergency room. Only Rosie's loyalty and the skill of medical professionals had made the difference between life and death. During the long months of recovery, she found herself drawn to spiritual practices that had never interested her before. The Benedictine monastery in Big Sur became a refuge where she could sit in silence without judgment or expectation. Her daily prayer became remarkably simple. Thank you for everything and forgive me for everything. Retirement from acting meant more than just stepping away from cameras and scripts. It represented Pauley's complete rejection of an industry system that had tried to control her since she first arrived in Hollywood with $71 in survival instincts honed by a childhood of constant movement. Her July 7, 2020 tweet announcing "I'm free in bright rainbow colors" wasn't just about leaving television behind. She now answered only to God, animals, and plants, she wrote. Her rescue dogs were her only judges. After 25 years of navigating studio politics, network demands, and industry expectations, she was choosing a life measured by completely different standards. No more scripts, no more schedules, no more compromising her values for paychecks. The offers kept coming anyway. The Good Doctor wanted her for guest appearances. Law & Order SVU tried to lure her back with roles that could have paid between $100,000 and $300,000 per episode. For someone with her name recognition and acting experience, these were easy money opportunities that most retired actors would have eagerly accepted. She said no to everything. The decision wasn't financial, it was philosophical. She had discovered that peace was worth more than any amount of money the entertainment industry could offer. The woman who had once worked multiple jobs just to survive in Los Angeles was now wealthy enough to turn down substantial paychecks without hesitation. Her commitment to animal rescue deepened during retirement. She wasn't just writing checks to organizations. She was personally rescuing dogs from dangerous situations and paying for their rehabilitation. In 1 year alone, she brought 12 dogs into her home, providing medical care, training, and love until they could find permanent families. Her involvement with Studio One Forever documentary revealed another side of her post-acting life. The project about America's first gay disco wasn't commercially motivated. It was about preserving history and honoring a community that had faced persecution similar to what she had experienced in different contexts. She served as executive producer, because she believed the stories deserved to be told. But her most private charitable acts never made headlines. When young cancer patient Cristina Flores died weeks after meeting her NCIS idol, Pauley quietly paid for the entire funeral and covered travel expenses for the grieving family. The gesture became public only through a brief tweet from Cristina's aunt, which was later deleted to respect everyone's privacy. The monastery visits became more frequent after her stroke. Twice a year, she would disappear to Big Sur for extended periods of silence and reflection. The Benedictine monks provided spiritual guidance without trying to recruit her to their specific religious tradition. They taught her contemplative practices that helped process decades of accumulated trauma and stress. When her will was leaked during a 2023 probate filing, the entertainment industry finally understood the depth of her commitment to her values. $22 million, her entire estate, was being donated to no-kill animal shelters in the Innocence Project. Not a single dollar was designated for family, friends, or entertainment industry causes. The will's specificity revealed careful planning. 60% would support animal shelters that aligned with her rescue philosophy. 40% would help free wrongfully convicted people through the Innocence Project. Both causes addressed fundamental injustices: the abuse of vulnerable creatures who couldn't defend themselves, and the persecution of innocent people by flawed systems. Even her final request honored the animals that had saved her life. Her ashes would be divided between a dog park where rescued animals could run free and the shelter where she had found her first companion. Death would return her to the places where love had been freely given and received without conditions or contracts. The $22 million revelation explained why she could afford to turn down lucrative television offers and maintain an expensive animal rescue operation. The same person who had walked dogs for $5 a day was now using millions of dollars to help other people walk dogs forever. Anyway, that's it for the video, folks. Bye.